Prisca, France. I was born in an Orthodox Coptic family. My parents immigrated to France when I was still a baby. I have always lived here. When I was a child, I attended a so-called Catholic church in our neighbourhood. As a teenager, I stopped going there because I was no longer interested. I didn't learn anything and was told that my atheist friend could be saved. But then why be Catholic? In the end, I stopped my time at Sunday school and even doubted whether God existed. My father didn't insist that I go back there, and he himself didn't practice, so it was pretty easy to give up for a young and ignorant person like me. At the age of 16, for a reason I don't remember, I had the desire to go back to church. As I didn't have the courage to do it by myself, I asked a Protestant friend if I could go with her. She accepted, and I attended for about a year. Yet, I finally left this church because I found it suspect. I thought it was some kind of cult, because the pastor was always asking us to give money to his church, and he was never available. The other problem that there was that religion was only a feeling, an emotional experience. No solid doctrines were taught. I had no proof that God existed, and so I only attended when I felt like it, and during times of discouragement, I had nothing to rely on. Moreover, a lot of important questions remained unanswered. What am I doing on earth? Why can bad things happen to good people? And so on. When I left this church, I still believed that God existed, even if I couldn't tell why. I guess I needed to believe it. But I had become very suspicious of churches and stayed away from them for several years. One day when I was in college, I had the idea of watching a sermon of a well-known woman, a Protestant preacher I had heard of in Egypt. I loved it and proceeded to binge-watch all of her other sermons. Strangely enough, though, it made me want to go back to a Catholic church. I don't know why, but I just wanted to go back to church, and a Catholic church felt like the only one worth going to. So I looked for one that had a prayer group for young people, just like there was in my former Protestant church. I liked these groups because they were a chance to address problems of our everyday lives, like what did it mean to be a Christian at work, in marriage, and in general secular society, and a mix of other questions about many things. This new Catholic church also seemed worth taking seriously because it defended the kinds of traditional values I had learned from my Egyptian education, such as respect for elders, for family, for natural law. And it seemed like these values were mostly respected by the priests of this new church. I didn't realise at the beginning, though, that it was modernist. Yet, I would go to Mass and come back home to watch Protestant sermons, without noticing any contradictions between them. This should have been a clue. I ended up quitting this church because the priests were progressively replaced by even more modernist priests that preached unacceptable or absurd ideas. For instance, one of them said that we could be saved in any religion. Catholicism was simply better than the others. Another day, the same priest said that homosexuality wasn't a sin. Well, I remembered reading the opposite in the Bible. How could I possibly know better than a priest? There was definitely something wrong. Therefore, I decided to leave. I was back at the starting point. I couldn't find a good church. Despite all that, I was sure that God existed, because otherwise life wouldn't make any sense. I just didn't know where to find him. I was tired of going from church to church and confused by all these doctrines, priests and preachers. How could I find the truth in the midst of all this? As I couldn't trust human beings, I went back to the source, God himself. One day I was praying to him and said, God, I'm lost. Please show me where to go. I'll do whatever it takes, even convert to another religion and lose my family if I need to. I just want the truth. At that time, I joined a Christian dating website and met a man who was a Sedevacantist. He took the time to explain to me my errors about politics and religion. For instance, he explained why modern democracies, based on popular sovereignty, were against God's rights over society. It was hard for me to accept, as I was very politically committed, but this man was obviously right, and I couldn't contradict him in good faith. He was also able to explain to me the strange things I had noticed in the church, the infusion of modern ideas, the apostasy of the so-called popes, and other such things. While I thought popes didn't matter, he explained to me why they actually did. The Church and its popes have been established by our Lord to teach and guide us in all times and in all places, and to make sure we don't go astray. I finally understood why I was so lost and couldn't find the truth. Everything this man told me answered my questions and convinced me, so I asked him where I could attend Mass. He gave me the address of a Sedevacantist parish in my city. There I continued to learn more about the true Catholic doctrine, and I abjured from my old beliefs 4 months later. Before accepting my new beliefs, I had to end a relationship with another man I'd met and started dating. Indeed, I quickly realised that it was distracting me from my conversion, and like I said earlier, I was ready to do whatever it took to find God. Therefore, I broke things off, with no regrets. Thankfully, this was the only cost of my conversion, and I've earned so much more since then.